And we're moving on up to the east side, which is apparently Metropolis.
Which apparently Metropolis.
Okay. On this Christmas episode of Moving Panels, we discuss the Lois and Clark episode, Season's Greetings. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, I always like to do something Christmas related, so let me think of something really quick. The good old jolly old soul, Laramy Wells.
Aww.
And joining me today in the co-host chair is
your present for all seasons.
There you go. My lovely wife, Bethany. Even though you've already spoke, say hello, Bethany.
Hello, Bethany.
There you go. All right, so this is our Christmas episode where we talk about a Christmas-themed superhero thing, and in this case, it is Season's Greetings.
Ooh, I see what they did there.
Yes, not greetings, but greetings. From the 90s hit show, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, that introduced the world to a much younger version of Superman than we had previously seen.
This was my very first episode of
Which
Lois.
I was surprised by.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I wasn't shocked that you hadn't seen a lot. I didn't know you had never seen any.
No, I think the only thing I had ever seen was, I think one time you showed me the video of Dean Cain, like, shaving himself with, like, his laser vision.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he does do that. But this was the 9th episode of the second season. It aired December 4th, 1994. So
I was 6.
So truly a Christmas episode. Whereas sometimes we get Christmas episodes that air in like October, November.
'Tis the season.
But this one we got in December.
Yay.
It was directed by Randall Zisk, and it was written by Dean Cain.
Now, I don't know if you knew this, Laramy. Dean Cain not only plays Clark Kent, he also plays Superman.
He does. He does.
I was really tickled when I watched this on HBO Max. It has Dean Cain listed twice. Once he's credited as Superman and once he's credited as Clark Kent. And it really tickled me.
Well, I mean, they're two different people. They just happen to be played by the same actor. So that's the way this goes. But I know that Dean Cain is a big Christmas person in real life. So I'm sure he jumped right on writing this episode.
This was like the Hallmark movie of Christmas episodes.
Look, we won't get into it just yet, but this is a good Christmas episode.
It is a Christmas episode.
It is a good Christmas episode. But let's go ahead and run through the characters, and then we'll talk about whoever you want to talk about. Well, as you just mentioned, Clark Kent and Superman are both played by Dean Cain.
It's really cool. It's just sad that they never get to have scenes together.
I know. Yeah. You'd think that it would be a little awkward. Lois Lane, played by Terry Hatcher. Winslow Schott, a.k.a. the Toyman, which I think he's actually credited in the credits as
he
Toyman.
Is.
Yeah.
He's like playing the Toyman, but they never technically call him that in the show.
No, they call him Mr. Schott throughout the show, and then there's one point where they do, I think they say his name Winslow. I know they say W. Schott. Mm-hmm. But played by Sherman Hemsley, a.k.a. George Jefferson.
Yay!
And then his assistant, Miss Duffy, Margaret Duffy, is played by Wheezy from the Jeffersons, Isabel Sanford. So we got the Jeffersons reuniting here.
That was kind of cute. How long had the Jeffersons been off the air by that point?
Maybe good 15 years, I would say.
Okay, so that's kind of cool. Just the two of them getting to reunite in that way.
Because this was 94, and the Jeffersons, I know, was a 70s show, but part of me wants to say that it went into the 80s. But
here's the part where we go on IMDb and check the facts.
Yeah, 85. So it had been almost 10 years.
Okay.
So yeah, this was 94, so it had been almost 10 years since the Jeffersons went off the air.
Very cute.
Then you've got our series regulars, Perry White, played by the Elvis-loving Lane Smith.
I was so excited to see him because I always think of him in the movie Son-in-Law.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was Perry White on this show.
Yep.
I was kind of shocked by a lot of people that were on this show.
Yeah. Well, I doubt it very much about Justin Whalen.
Look,
who played Jimmy Olsen.
I had a crush on Justin Whalen. He was in Susie Q.
Oh, that's right. He was the forgotten Disney movie.
Not forgotten by me. I still remember. I showed our daughter that movie one time.
Yeah,
we found it on YouTube. Yeah. That children's movie where at the very beginning the title character dies, and then her ghost tries to solve like a real estate issue.
Yeah. Yeah. He actually gave up acting.
I think his last movie, I was looking, it was like 2008.
2009, I think it was. Yeah, he gave up acting, and he's actually a drama teacher now.
Good for him. He was so cute. He had that like perfect 90s like shag hair that just all the cute boys in movies had.
Yeah. What was that other kid? The one...
Devin Sawa?
No, that's not who I'm thinking of. It was the guy he was in Sequest, is Jonathan something. I can't remember. Someone will tell me later.
Yeah.
But moving on, we've got the Kents, Jonathan and Martha, played by Eddie Jones and Kay Callan.
They were so cute.
This has always been one of my favorite versions of the Kents. I can't downgrade my Smallville Kents. I think they're my favorite. But I have always liked this version of Jonathan and Martha.
Well, I was kind of surprised that Jonathan was alive.
Well, see, that's just a movie thing. That's just a movie thing.
Well, I don't watch the shows. And so when he walked in and it was Jonathan and Martha, it took me a second to realize who it was going to be. Because I didn't realize he would be alive.
Yeah, no, that was just something from the movies. Jonathan was alive in the comic books all the way through, so... then we've got a couple of cameos, I guess you would say. First off is the orphanage worker, who also is a Santa Claus, played by another 70s television icon, Dick Van Patten, who was the dad on 8 is Enough. I
never watched that show. What else do I know him from?
I mean, there could be a few things.
He just looked very familiar to me, but it could just be that he kind of looked like, he was Soylent Green.
Well, he wasn't Soylent Green.
Well, Soylent Green was people, Laramy.
He was in Soylent Green. I mean, he's in some Mel Brooks stuff. Yeah. He was in Men in Tights. He was in Spaceballs. He was in a couple episodes of Arrested Development, so you probably know him from that stuff. But, and then we've got, as one of Jimmy's flirt girls, I think as they're sometimes known, just appears in one episode and then you never see her again, Denise Richards.
So, real story, I thought that was like someone related to Denise Richards.
Nope, that was Denise Richards. 1994 Denise Richards.
I was like, wait, this was a while back ago. This might actually just be Denise Richards.
Yep.
Not like her niece or her daughter or something.
Nope. That was Denise Richards. But if you want to talk about more of these, let's talk about more of these. But who do you want to see again? And who do you wish would be the victim of a horrible toy accident?
You know what? I really enjoyed Perry White. Like, Lane Smith did a really good job. He's always such a villain. And I know Perry White can kind of be, I'm thinking of the guy from Spider-Man more.
The Jane Jonah Jameson. Yeah.
But he was such a good, like, dad figure.
Yeah, he is.
And so it was fun watching him. I would like to watch more Perry White. And I don't know. Let's say Angela can jump off or get sprayed in the face by an atomic rat.
Yeah, atomic space rat.
Atomic space rat.
You get that wrong. Yeah, Lane Smith's Perry White is very unique because in the comics and in a lot of the other stuff, Perry's always been a good boss, but very hard-nosed boss. He's always had the famous line of Great Caesar's Ghost. Like that was kind of his tagline. But Lane Smith, because he's such an Elvis fan, and I think that was a real thing that they then brought into the show, instead of saying Great Caesar's Ghost, he says Great Shades of Elvis.
Okay.
Like, yeah. Or something like that. I could be thinking of her, because I don't think he says it in this episode.
I mean, he's such a fun actor to watch because he has this look like he's going to be a bad guy, but he's also like, he's got this shade of lovableness about him. He's always fun to, I always enjoy seeing him.
Well, let me ask, since this was your first time, what did you think of Dean Cain as Clark Kent / Superman?
I mean, he did a good job.
Because, the show did focus more on Clark Kent.
Yeah.
This was before Smallville, and of course he is Superman, and there is the Superman stuff. But this show, being called Lois and Clark, it was more about Clark's relationships with these people. And Superman just kind of being a side part of it.
It was very reminiscent of the Christopher Reeve Superman. Like, he clearly drew a lot of, inspiration from Christopher Reeve's characterization of Superman. I enjoyed watching him as Clark Kent a little bit more than, he's not Superman a ton.
Yeah.
But when he was Superman, he was just kind of like, oh, okay, there's Superman. But Clark Kent was kind of interesting, especially once he gets like sprayed with the spray and he has to be a kid. And I don't know, it was just kind of cute. It made it make sense because I'm guessing this show kind of focused on the relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
Absolutely.
And why she would be torn between those two. Because sometimes, Clark Kent's just kind of this dopey guy, and like, why would Lois Lane pay any attention to him when she's got Superman to flirt with? This one, Clark Kent's really lovable, and he's kind, and he's got a good personality. And,
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's Superman, but Clark Kent also showed up for her dinner when no one else did.
Yeah.
Granted, she did disinvite everybody because she wanted all the food to herself.
She did make a full course meal for herself. Yeah. Whole turkey, all of it.
That whole story was very sweet, actually. I enjoyed Lois's kind of arc, and, you've always got the big city girl, big city woman who has to learn the true meaning of Christmas. But she doesn't find it because some man like tells her to. She stumbles upon it on her own.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the story. It was cute.
Yep. What'd you think of the Jeffersons being the villains?
I just love their chemistry with each other. And honestly, like, Miss Duffy was precious. And I enjoyed watching the two of them play together. And it added this really nice dynamic when she's like, but you love children. Like, and it makes sense. Like, why would you become a toy maker if you didn't like kids? And so it adds to that, like, it adds to the stakes at the end when he has to witness what he has done, like, firsthand, and how it's actually going to hurt people.
And I mean,
specifically children.
Yeah, we're jumping into the the later half of the show, but I like that this was a show that honestly didn't need Superman to save the day.
No.
This story did not need Superman to save the day. Like you said, Superman's barely in it, and anything Superman does, with the exception of when he boils the lake, I guess is what he's doing. Nothing he does really affects the outcome of what ends up happening.
He just makes it move along a little bit faster.
Yes, and also prevents Toyman and a little girl from dying. But
well, that too, I guess.
What's up, dudes? I'm Jerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
And Cabbage Patch Kids.
yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
And Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from three nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
All right, but let's get into the moving panels. There's not a lot to talk about, so I figured why not use this time to talk about Toyman, because how often am I going to get the chance to talk about Toyman?
Well, it was so funny when I was watching this, Ruby walked in and she was like, what character is that? And I was like, toy guy, toy person, toy man. And she was like, oh, really? Because apparently something she has watched has Toyman as the villain.
Yeah. And there are a lot of versions of Toyman, so I don't know which one she may have seen. But this version is Winslow Schott, who is from the comics. He was the first incarnation of Toyman back in September of 1943 in Action Comics number 64. And as comics of that day, there's not really much to his background. He's just like the villain of the story, and there's really nothing to get to it. You do kind of learn after he pops up a few times in the 50s and whatnot that Schott was originally a very sweet and humble man, which this show kind of plays on. And then as he becomes Toyman, he becomes a little bit more megalomaniac. He becomes childish, which I think Sherman Hemsley portrays pretty well.
Yeah.
And he appeared here and there throughout the comic, throughout the 50s, 60s, into the 70s. There was one point where he retired. Another guy became Toyman. I believe this is the one that more looks like a court gesture with the mask and all that people probably remember from some of the animated stuff from the like 70s and 80s. That Toyman, but the Schott actually came and helped Superman stop him because he felt that he was sullying the name of Toyman. But then when Crisis on Infinite Earths, I'll get it out in a minute. When that event occurred in the 80s, and then you had all the post-crisis stuff that kind of reset a lot of the DC universe, he was reintroduced in Superman number 13 in January of 1988. And this is the one that's a little more closer to what they were portraying in the show. He's fired from the toy company, which was actually run by Lex Luthor.
Of course.
He then seeks his revenge because he was fired. So
absolutely.
That is what we have here with the Sherman Hemsley character, where he was fired from the toy company. Although where he gets the warehouse that houses all of these, how he is able to get the distribution.
Miss Duffy is overworked and underpaid. She rented the warehouse in her own name.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
But what also didn't make sense was he talks about, the rat's going to be on every store and every shelf, and then phase 2 of his plan was to get a bunch of
adults
the construction workers to then remove toys off shelves and put the rats on the shelf. Where he goes, finds those construction workers who are just all ready to beat him up as soon as he arrives. They've already got pipes in their hands and hooks and whatnot. But he gets them, and I'm like, but you already had it in stores, and now you're breaking in to put them on stores. So
which means you're not getting the money from selling them.
You're giving them free inventory. So I don't really know who's suffering from this. But back to the comic version, just to kind of give a brief synopsis here. As Toyman in this new post-crisis version, Shot actually ended up growing to hate children and blaming them for not appreciating his toys, which they do kind of
play on that as well.
Yeah, that they didn't like his teddy bear. But big thing about Toyman, this is always something that has always stuck with me since I've learned stuff about Superman, is Toyman would actually later abduct and murder a child.
Oh no.
He murdered Adam Morgan, who was the son of Daily Planet reporter Cat Grant, who there is a live version of her that would appear here on Lois and Clark, and then she would later be also portrayed by Callista Flockhart on Supergirl. But yeah, her son is murdered by the Toyman, by Winslow Shot.
I'm upset.
Yeah.
Now in Supergirl, isn't Toyman the Jeremy Jordan's dad?
Yes, they do that. I don't know if he's Winslow Shot. I got to go back to remember what name he uses. They had a Toyman in Smallville too. Then there was what most people would probably remember, the live doll.
Yeah.
That was Toyman from the Batman the Animated Series and the animated universe stuff there.
It really makes you wonder, like, what comic book writer sat down and was like, you know who I think is just a bad guy? People who make toys.
I honestly think that I feel bad. I didn't look up who originally created the character, but I actually think the newer version of him was created by John Byrne, the same guy who rebooted She-Hulk in Marvel. I think he was the one that took over the character, but I won't get into too much of his story. There is a interesting little twist where you later find out that all the previous incarnations of Toyman were actually toys created by Shot, and he was playing some mind game the whole time.
So it's like Santa Claus 2.
Well, but you even find out that the one who... Well, okay. So then there's a story in which Superman... later shows him that children actually appreciate old-fashioned toys, and he arranges for Toyman to spend his parole in an orphanage, which again kind of ties in with this episode because they kind of do where he gives the toys, the teddy bears, to the kids in the orphanage.
Yeah. A teddy bear that makes a mute girl speak for the first time.
Yes, our Tiny Tim character.
Her parents died, and the only thing that can make her speak...
We don't know what happened to her parents. We don't know if her
She's
parents...
an orphan. What do you think happened to her parents? We don't know if her parents
just dropped her off and left her and abandoned her. We don't know.
Okay, either one. It's so traumatic that she didn't speak for 2 years... But a teddy bear telling her Merry Christmas, she's like, that's it. Yeah. This is it.
And then she says, I love you too,
I love you too, Mr. Bear.
Yeah. And of course that melts everyone's heart.
And Winslow Shot's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
All right. So is there anything you want to talk about before we just talk about what we thought of this episode?
Can we talk about the fact that, like... Are we going to talk about the weird things that Superman did throughout the episode? Like, you were fussing about how Martha grabbed him by the ear.
Yeah, so, yeah, we didn't talk about... So, we honestly haven't even talked about the premise of the show.
Okay.
But...
Do you want me to give my own little summary?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so here's what happened was. So, Lois and Clark, it's Christmas time. And Lois is all like, I don't know, Christmas is just like Labor Day or Arbor Day. They're great holidays or whatever, but they're whatever. And Superman's like, no, I'm going to make you believe in Santa Claus.
Clark
is going to make you believe in Santa Claus. So there's like this group of kids and they're outside of an orphanage.
You're going to tell the whole thing. Okay.
And the Toyman... He's like, hey, play with this rat, and the rat makes them all greedy and stuff.
Yeah, I love how he, stranger dangers.
They're like, you're not
come over here and play
with my toy. And the big kid's like, "You're not a weirdo, are you?" And he's like, "Nah,
I'm
here.
a toy maker.
Nah, I'm a toy maker. Here, let me spray you in the face with my rat toy." And then all the kids lose their minds. Well, now the toys are super...
It makes children greedy,
Yes,
is what it does.
That's
yes.
what I said, Laramy. Anyways, so then Lois has to, like, report on the story, and she gets sprayed in the face, and she gets the stuff all over her hands.
Which, the kind of rich woman that she fights with, Dean Cain's real-life mom.
Oh, so sad.
There you go.
So then Lois Lane becomes a kid, and also you find out that Lois Lane's parents divorced at Christmas time, and that she has like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree complex. Anyway, so she's a kid, and then all the adults start acting like greedy children, and Perry White, not Perry Lane, he takes the toys from them, and then Martha and Jonathan are like, something's up here, and they get mad at Superman because he melts Lois's heel.
Yeah.
And they're like, shoes are expensive. Don't mess up people's shoes. And
then Martha grabs Clark by the ear, and he actually hunches down, and he's like, and I'm like, you're Superman.
Okay.
I don't get how a tug on your ear.
Okay. So here is my defense of that. When your mom, you're an adult man, you're 40 years old, and if your parents look at you and they're mad at you and you're in trouble, you feel like you're that kid again of just like,
he's always been Superman.
Yes, but he's also always been like respectful of his parents.
Oh, I get the respect. Yeah, it's just because even when she lets go, it's not rubs on it. Like,
well, it's not a comfortable feeling. Anyways, so Superman invulnerable to all things except for when his mom grabs him by the ear.
No.
Take note, Lex Luthor. So then they end up figuring out that the toys are bad.
It wears off on Clark first,
which makes sense.
And it happens to wear off at the perfect time
when Martha and Jonathan are like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "What? I think it's the toys." So he makes Lois take a bath, and then Lois feels better. Also, Denise Richards is there.
Yeah.
And
not in the bath with Lois.
No.
That's Wild Things. That's another. That's Neve Campbell. That's another movie.
Anyways, so they end up figuring out that it's the guy from the Jeffersons. He's built these toys, and he's gonna take over the world somehow with the toys.
Yeah,
making people.
They found out who his distributor is, and they're going to talk to him.
Yes. Meanwhile, this whole time, there's been a Santa Claus that works at an orphanage. There's a little girl who doesn't speak because her parents were murdered in front of her. Maybe. And I don't know.
But we then find out that the next phase of his plan, after the toys are discovered.
Yes.
Because they do.
He dumps all the chemicals into the water.
But then Lois has had the chemical analyzed, because apparently reporters can do that. And she finds out that
if you boil it, it becomes totally fine.
If you heat it up, there's no problem to it at all.
So Superman's like, I got this. He boils the water.
Yeah.
And then everybody's fine. And then they go to attack the Toyman and Mrs. Duffy.
Not attack so much. They just go to capture a shot. And at the same time, they know that Miss Duffy has left him.
Yes.
Left him a Dear John letter, and she has gone to distribute his original toy, this little teddy bear.
Which said, like, Merry Christmas, I love you.
Yeah, she's distributing it to the orphanage. Clark and Lois see that. They tell Shot, hey, if you tell us what you've done with the chemicals, we'll take you to see Miss Duffy. He tells them about the lake. Clark, as Superman, goes and heats up the lake with his heat vision. Then they're at the orphanage, and the little girl who doesn't speak sees them.
She sees Lois holding the bear and the rat.
Yeah.
And so she like breaks out of the orphanage and like runs into a busy road to try to get to them.
Where she's about to be trampled by a horse and buggy. Because it's 1894.
Still 1994.
And Shot actually sees this and he jumps to protect the girl. Unfortunately, he falls and they're about to both get trampled, but luckily Superman saves both of them.
Yes.
And saves the day. And then we find out that he really does love children, and he doesn't want to see any harm of children.
And they are like, look, if you can be like cool for a whole minute and help these orphans, we won't take you to jail right now.
Yeah, Superman gets the police to agree, hey, just let him stay and hand out the toys before you take him to prison. And of course they go, sure, Superman, we'll do whatever you said. But before this, just to have a completely Christmas moment, they have Superman flying a sleigh containing Perry White, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen. He just flies it in towards the orphanage. There is no mention of why is Clark not there at this point. There was at other points.
There was like where is he? He fell down.
Well, there was also the one where it was like, he's still talking to Santa Claus. And Lois was like, of course he is. Yeah.
Which, honestly, the most accurate, like, response. I mean, if I saw Clark Kent and somebody said, like, where's Clark? And they said, oh, he's talking to Santa Claus. My response would be, of course he is.
Yeah. And then Lois ends up making things right between Denise Richards and Jimmy Olsen.
Yes, because Jimmy Olsen, like, while he was under the greedy spell, he put his name as the only name in the Secret Santa pile, so he got all the presents, and Denise Richards got mad.
Yeah, so because they're now going to go out on a date, that was the last person for Lois's Christmas party, little holiday get-together, because everybody else was busy. So then we end the episode with Lois finishing up the meal. She is dressed to the nines.
She is wearing an evening gown, a spaghetti strap evening gown. She looks gorgeous, but it's December.
And she's got the window open because then a gust blows through, so she's thinking Superman has come. But there is no Superman. Then there's a knock on the door. It's Clark. Clark tries to explain, I missed my flight to Smallville.
It's snowing, and she looks out the open window, and she's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, so she realizes that he chose to be there with her, and it's a sweet little moment, and there are carolers outside. And
he gives her a star for the top of her
which he
Charlie
does
Brown
say
Christmas
Superman
tree.
helped him get it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, no, he says, Superman helped me get it. And she's like, where did he get it from? And then he points to the sky.
Yeah.
So either one, he stole a star from the sky to put on her stupid tree,
I
which
think
doesn't
it's
make
more
sense.
of like an asteroid, meteor
because that
type
makes
thing.
So much more sense.
Superman carved into a star.
I don't know. Where did this star come from? What do you mean when you pointed to the... You got to be a bit more specific. Anyways, that's how the episode ends.
Yeah. So there you go. So let's go ahead and get into it. For this episode of Lois and Clark, Back at Stack It or Trade It, what say you, Bethany?
I would stack it. Like, it's not one that I'm going to hold up as, like, the perfect Christmas episode. But I will say it was cute. There was some fun moments to it. I was glad that I got introduced to it. I love a good Christmas special. So yeah, I'm going to say stack it. I'll come back to it maybe once a year or once every other year, something like that.
Yeah. I'm actually going to say bag it.
Of course you are.
Well, but it's not just because it's a Superman thing. You and I actually talked about this before we recorded. I like that this is a pure Christmas related episode. Like we said earlier, it doesn't require Superman for this to have gone down kind of the way it did. I mean, Superman does prevent the poison, the chemical from spreading through the water, but really everything else could have just been accomplished by a couple of really good reporters. They could have had Toyman actually rescue the little girl and not put himself in danger, which just gives you another moment for Superman.
Because, I mean, even Toyman wasn't using, like, magic or some sort of superhuman ability, except for maybe the toy making itself was some sort of superhuman feat. And
the show really, really relays the story. I mean, with it being about greed, about how Christmas is about giving more than it is about getting. It's more about what you're doing for others than it is for what you're trying to do for yourself.
And I did like where Lois makes a point early on in the episode of like, I'm just waiting for that moment where I find Christmas, and I never find it. And then at the end of the episode, she says, I think I just found Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's when the little girl speaks for the first time. And it's actually a very touching moment because she's revealed throughout the episode stuff about her growing up, things about her feelings towards the holidays, and it kind of seems like the episode more focuses on her development than anyone else's.
Yeah, but like I said, I just like that it is very grounded. Like they don't do like, they could have easily have pulled a trick where you end up finding out that Dick Van Patten actually was Santa Claus.
I kept waiting for that turn.
Because that's what you were used to from TV shows.
Yeah.
Even shows like Full House, that had this magical thing of, was that really Santa Claus?
What?
It's like, Joey, weren't you just dressed as Santa Claus? And he was like, no,
I just got here. I've been stuck in traffic all afternoon.
Yeah, and they've done that. And this one, yes, there's the campiness of it, but that's just a 90s television show, especially with the effects and all. But yes, there was the campiness of it, but it wasn't the corniness that you usually get out of a Christmas-themed episode of a television show. And that is why I lean it more into the Baggett, because if you want to watch a Christmas-themed episode of a show, this is probably one of the better ones to watch.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm still going to keep my stack it just because, I liked it, but I'm not like obsessed with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. We don't want to keep you long here for Christmas
spend time
coming.
With your family. Wrap some presents.
Yeah, we're a week away from Christmas, and so you go enjoy it. I'm sure school, if it's not already out for you, it's getting out this week, like it is for me. And so you will enjoy the time. And then come back. We'll be back for another episode next Monday, and we'll move along from there. But for today, for Moving Panels, you know what? Let's just go ahead. I wish you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I'll go ahead and say Happy New Year, even though we'll have an episode before then.
Tonight's the first night of Hanukkah, so Happy Hanukkah.
And yes, we are recording this the first night of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to all of you. But happy holidays to everybody from Moving Panels, from me and Bethany. But for today, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Ho, ho, ho.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.